Truth, lies, shenanigans.
Ellen, you wanted
Two
to talk
people that
about
are
these
probably gonna kill each
toxic
other.
relationships out here. What's going on?
Hopefully, these two have an advance directive. They nearly killed each
Oh
They
my
other.
need
God,
one.
Liz. Yeah. So this is a lot, so bear with me here.
Okay.
Um, but the short and condensed version of this is Amber Heard and Johnny Depp got together around 2014, were married for about 15 months and got a divorce. And in 2018, Heard wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post talking about treatment of women in domestic abuse cases that was clearly directed towards Johnny Depp. She didn't name him, but it was very clear that it was about her relationship with him. She accused of him of being violent towards her while he was on drugs and alcohol, and would use really disparaging language towards her. Depp sued Heard for defamation over this article and lost. The Sun put out the tabloid The Sun put out an article calling him a wife beater. He tried to sue them for libel and lost. So now we're at a current trial where Depp is trying to sue Heard for defamation. This is ongoing. He managed to get an audio recording of Heard admitting to hitting him and saying, "I didn't punch you, I slapped you. God, Johnny, you're such a baby." And he says, don't tell me what it's like to be punched." It's important to note that he had a pretty bad history of abuse with his mother. And she admitted there's images of bruises from her throwing things at him. She threw a vodka bottle at him and it like severed his finger. She put a cigarette out in his face. And I want to make it clear that I'm not defending Johnny Depp here because we don't know what he's done yet. It's not clear what he's
He
done.
hasn't
Amber
testified.
Heard has yet to testify in this trial. But her insistence in those clips that he was being a baby and that he was overreacting, as well as many other people's opinions that men can't be abused by women, points to a broader cultural phenomenon of men not being taken seriously when it comes to abuse allegations. So my question to you guys is, do you think that a culture of toxic masculinity makes it such that we have trouble believing men can be abused?
Let's start with Rob on this one.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I've experienced abusive behavior in relationships early on, so my eyes have kind of always been open to it. I know several friends who have been in toxic and abusive situations. So, yeah, I mean, to see it playing out at a celebrity level doesn't. It's not surprising. Does toxic
Right.
masculinity play into it? Um, I don't know. I guess like maybe like the machismo aspect, where well, yeah, I'm not going to come forward because well, I got this, I got the piss smacked out of me by my girlfriend or my wife. Not the
Yeah.
most macho thing that you can say. So I can
Right.
appreciate where that might hold some people back, but no, it's something
Right.
that needs to be out in the open. Because
Hmm.
abuse is abuse, trauma is trauma, and people who need help are people who need help. So
Yep.
yeah, no, that's where I'm kind of feeling at the onset.
Hmm.
Yeah. Lizzie?
Hmm.
I'm not necessarily sure that this is the best example of
Hmm.
domestic violence against men because
Hmm.
clearly these two were abusive towards one another. Actually, one of
Yes.
her witnesses, her witnesses that like, yeah, I never saw him abuse Amber. I saw her um talk horribly about him, abuse him or whatever. However, I heard him use abusive
Hmm.
language. So there's been a back
Hmm.
and forth with these two.
So at least
Um,
verbal
I
abuse.
well, at
Hmm.
least verbal abuse. There have been things that have been in dispute. The whole finger cutting incident. He says that
Yep.
she cut his finger. However, he told his doctor that he cut his own finger. The doctor testified to
Hmm.
that last week. He told other people that he
Hmm.
cut his own finger. There's
Mm,
some discrepancy about the shit in the bed. So they're both crazy people.
Yep.
There's alcohol
Yep.
involved here. There's
drugs.
horrible drug abuse
Mm.
here. There's just,
Yep.
toxic on both sides. So I,
Hmm.
I think both of them kind of cancel each other out, which I hate because it
Yeah.
takes away from what we're trying to talk about in
Right.
domestic abuse when it involves male victims. And
Right.
yes, there are male victims out there. Yes, I do think toxic masculinity contributes to it because men are supposed to be, the head of the household, the king.
Hmm.
They're supposed to,
Hmm.
get their women in order and not put
Right.
up with the woman who steps out of
Right.
place. who, like, Cam Newton said last week, talks too damn much, right?
Yeah.
But it also points the finger at, I think, what we have established as the role of women in society as well. We're
Mhm.
not supposed to, counter our men or be strong
Right.
or be toxic. We're supposed to be damsels
Right.
in distress. And so it
Right.
speaks to a lot of these things. And like Rob said, like, I knew someone when I was in, I think my first couple of years in New York, male friend of mine who was in a horrible, horrible domestic abuse situation in which
Mhm.
his newlywed wife was beating the crap out of him.
Mm.
Mm.
Hmm.
Now, he never admitted it in the beginning, but you could tell just in their interaction that she was at least verbally abusive, verbally
Mhm.
dismissive, and constantly putting him down over. And everyone would kind of look at him like, "Bruh," and then I think that made him just go even deeper into his
Yep.
shell
Mm.
because he was
Mhm.
embarrassed and he didn't know how to react. So, yes, this is a situation. I don't think it's a situation on this show where we need to compare, like, one happens more than the other. No,
Oh,
but
definitely.
this is a very real thing that goes on. And like Rob said, when
Mhm.
you have celebrities involved, the stakes are kind of
Yep.
higher, right? You have a lot of money.
Mhm.
You have, unlimited access to alcohol and drugs. It
Oh yeah.
makes it that much worse. It really does. I think Amber is a piece of shit. I've long
Oh yeah.
since thought that, Johnny Depp is a piece of shit because
Yeah.
before Amber Heard, there was Kate Moss. And he used to have
Yeah. Yeah.
toxic interactions with Kate Moss. So I think this
Yep.
might not necessarily be the best example, but clearly there was abuse here
Oh
from
no, there's
her.
question.
Right.
No
Mm.
question. It was
Yep.
abuse.
Clearly there was abuse here. And
Yep.
you want to say to young men, like, or older men, middle-aged men, older men, you want to reach out and be like, you know what, it's okay to admit this. It
Yep.
really is okay to admit this. And we also need to talk about, because it's not just heterosexual men who are in heterosexual couples
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that
Definitely not.
deal
a
with
great
this.
great comment there.
Yep.
Mhm.
There are a lot of gay males who are dealing with this, gay females as well,
Mhm.
Hmm.
but a lot of
Yep.
gay males who are dealing with this, and it's awful. It's awful.
Yep.
So
Awful.
Yep.
yeah,
Mhm.
to that point, I got a few quick statistics from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So nearly
Mhm.
20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. This includes wide
Mhm.
range of behaviors such as slapping, shoving, pushing. And it's 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have been victims of severe physical violence, beating, burning, strangling by an intimate partner. But those don't fully take into account the underreporting of cases by men. But it's
Yep.
Or
difficult
women.
because
Yeah,
Yep.
underreporting period.
period, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Um,
involving verbal abuse too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
No, it does not take into account verbal abuse because, like I said, I was in a relationship where there was physical violence. It was the reason I ended the relationship. And
Mhm.
it's difficult to admit to people, difficult to talk to
Mhm.
people as a guy. Um, and I don't know that mine compares to this Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. I
It
mean,
doesn't have to though, Neo. Like, I
sure,
remember we first talked about this years ago.
yeah,
You and I personally first, and I
yeah,
don't think it has to. The fact that you were in that situation speaks volumes
right.
and adds
Yeah.
credence to this argument that it is happening, and it's a horrible position to be in. It,
And
it really
Mhm.
is.
when I'm listening to Johnny Depp, I mean, he had problems with his mother, right? And so
Yep.
I think back to relationship. I can compare in some ways in the sense that you don't realize it, but as much as
Mhm.
you don't want someone like that in your life, somehow subconsciously you find that person. It's the
Yeah.
Yep.
strangest thing. And relationship
100%.
relationship therapists have said often, when I was going through therapy after all of that, I was like, that's what happens. You try to find the person that's just like them without realizing. And so I found
Mm.
myself in
Yeah.
that situation. So I'm sure he found the same thing that within probably an intense relationship, which she probably was deeply in love, because I know that's how I felt at the time, but
Mhm.
it was because it felt comfortable. That was at least
I
that's what
think
my
this was
therapists were telling me. It's because it
I
felt
think
comfortable.
for Johnny, this
Mhm.
was kind of a rebound because he had just broken up with his longtime partner, mother of his two
Yep.
children, Vanessa Paradis.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
so I think this was kind of a rebound for him. But again, he had been abusing drugs profusely at that
Mhm.
time, as was
Yep.
Amber. But this is
Yeah.
why I just want to get this in there. This is why I caution people all the time in relationships, whether it be intimate relationships, professional, whatever. Be very careful about how people speak to you. I'm very
Mhm.
sensitive about how people address me, speak to me, whether they're
Yes.
cussing me out, whether they're calling me names or what have you, especially if I am in an intimate relationship, because that is a precursor to what is to come. And
Oh, yes.
I shut that shit down immediately.
That's
Like
how
if you
as
can't speak to me respectfully, then we don't need to be in close proximity with one another
yeah, I
at
will say
all
Yeah.
ever.
my
Right.
relationship never, ever got to the the depths of what they've
That
gotten
level.
into, the violence and
Mhm.
the nastiness that they never. Because I never wanted to go there, and so, it took 3 times, and I was like, "You know what? I'm done. I'm out."
Mm.
And it wasn't even
Yeah.
significant. They weren't, like, horrible I didn't walk away with bruises and pain. It wasn't anything like that. It was just enough violence for me to say, "I'm done. I'm not gonna
And
And
do
Yep.
do you recognize
that's
that
enough.
it was something that was escalating?
escalating."
Because I know
Yeah,
you've told the story before,
exactly.
and
Right.
it escalated,
Yeah,
and they're
Mhm.
constantly pushing that bar. What am I
And
going
I'm
to
not
do
gonna
next to
be
push this person away?
Johnny Depp in an
exactly.
Amber Heard
Exactly.
situation. No, I'm done.
Right.
So,
And a lot
Yep.
of these
and
Yeah.
everybody
incidents
should look at it
start
like that. You should be willing
with
to
the
walk
verb.
away.
A lot of
Yep.
these incidents start with the verbal argument.
It does.
With the
Every
Yeah.
time.
Well,
verbal
Mhm.
argument.
Every
absolutely.
time.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
will say we weren't the best communicators verbally. I mean, we probably were verbally abusive to one another, from time to time.
Mhm.
I'll own my mistakes in my relationships, early
Mhm.
on after, you know, because I wasn't the best in that relationship myself. So I can't.
Yep.
I was never abusive, but I wasn't the best in that relationship.
Yep.
All right, let's get to these comments. A lot of comments. We
Mhm.
had Jacqueline Robinson. We had a couple of male clients who were abused. One was an elderly, well-known TV personality and was too embarrassed to seek treatments for his injuries. The other was
Mhm.
a former
Mm.
athlete who understood that if he struck back, given his size and strength, we would never have been having a different discussion, including criminal charges. Sherry Blaine
Mm.
Priest. Great question, Ellen. I was thinking the very same thing. Um,
Mhm.
are men going to be believed if, when it happens to them, the same sort of
Mhm.
thing women may go through? I didn't even think I wasn't going to be believed. I was just embarrassed.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm still
yeah.
embarrassed in a way to talk about it because I really don't want to share
Yep.
what actually happened. Um,
Right. And
go ahead, Ellen, you
I
had
was just
something?
gonna say
I
very
was just
quickly,
gonna.
like a lot of women are embarrassed. A lot of women are embarrassed,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Which is why
Absolutely.
they don't tell. So imagine the male embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably
Mhm.
tenfold.
Yeah.
It's probably tenfold.
Yeah.
Because I should be able
And
to
that's why.
protect. Well, I was able to protect
Yeah.
myself, but in the sense that I should be able to.
And that's why I asked that question because I mean, I know I can think of a lot of people, I know a lot of, I've talked about New York Italians before because I think, these are just people that I know. I know a lot of macho, toxic guys who would, shame someone who, if they came out being abused by a guy who's being abused by his wife or his female partner because they would say like, you can hit them back, or how are you going to take that from your woman or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's not even necessarily like I'm not, when I ask toxic masculinity, I'm not even saying rooted from, if we're talking about Johnny Depp particularly, not saying rooted from him, but the people around him. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
people don't think that men are capable of being abused in this way because men aren't allowed to feel vulnerable and have real raw feelings because they have to put up a shield all
You have to put up a shield all the time. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So Sherry Blaine Priest, 100% Lizzie. The way people speak to you should be a sign of what
the
is
time.
to come. Adeboyega,
Absolutely.
what's going
I
on?
like that one.
Abuse is abuse, he says.
Abuse is abuse is abuse.
It's
End of
abuse.
story.
Yep.
Young Robinson agrees with Sherry Blaine Priest. Exactly. Pay close attention to how they talk about other women, including their mothers and their
Yeah.
exes. All right, guys.
Mm.
That's all the time we have for this. Is this
Truth,
truth,
lies, shenanigans.
lies, or shenanigans? Truth. We're
I
talking about
think
some
this is.
truth, but
I think these are
Amber Heard
true.
situation is definitely shenanigans.
It's
I don't
more
know.
shenanigans. More
We were talking some
shenanigans.
I
truth.
think
Amber Heard
the
and then
truth is coming
Depp.
out. Someone's lying. Perhaps. I don't know. You got them all.
They
I
could both
think
be
both
telling
of.
the truth.
I think there's
Yeah,
truth
they're
in
probably
both
both
of them
telling the truth.
because they were both
Yeah.
that crazy, and
And when you,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I'm saying, when you have intense fights and things like that, intense arguments and battles, I'm telling you, sometimes you zone out and you don't even remember things clearly, especially with all the drug and alcohol
Especially
use
if
we're
drugs
talking
and
about.
alcohol. Yeah. Drugs
So
and
they're probably
alcohol
telling
being
their truth, is basically what it is.
Definitely.
their
Yeah.
So-
I don't think
recollection.
anyone's
My
necessarily
recollection.
lying here. And I will say, I'm a little worried about people's responses to Johnny Depp because you see a lot of like justice for Johnny. You know, like Johnny's completely innocent. Him abusing or her abusing him does not mean that they could not abuse each other. I mean, that's what we've been saying in this conversation. But you know, none of them have to be lying. This whole story is kind of being framed as, oh, Amber Heard was lying the whole time. She made all this shit up about Johnny Depp, and it's not true. But it's just coming out that it was coming from both sides. I think. So I think that
Yeah,
discourse
people take
online
sides.
should keep that in mind. Yeah,
All right.
People take
definitely.
sides.
All
People
right, let's
take
switch